Women are much more complex than men.
Why you had to say it all like that?
Because they are. Okay, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Let me fall on the sword. Let me apologize. Now that I've done all that, let's move on. Mm-hmm. But see, what you say is, okay, this affected me in this kind of way.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about how it affected.
And I want to deal with the effects, because I believe once you deal with the effects, then we can truly open up, talk through, and then move on. So I had to take a step back. In learning how to take a step back, I learned how to be silent, ladies. I had to learn how to be silent because, for men, yeah, they want to be heard. They want their point, want to get their point across. But at the end of the day, what fruit is going to come out of that if we're both going back and forth?
That's a good word. All right, everybody. Welcome to Studio B. I am your host, Pastor MDH. Thank you so very much for joining us here again on the set. This is part 2.
Part 2.
Now, first of all, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform that you may be watching us on: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatever it may be. Like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss anything going on the set of Studio B. Now, today, let me put a qualifying statement out there, a disclaimer. Husbands, you need to go get your wives.
Go get them.
Wives, go get your husbands. Because this is going to be a real conversation about marriage, commitment, communication. And things that are very vital to a successful relationship. So I have, not at the table this time, a table, but a different type of table.
Close.
My wife, Lady J, my boo bear, Jamie Holman. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful today.
It feels so weird calling you Jamie. But anyway.
Don't call me Jamie.
I'm not going to call you Jamie. I'm going to call you Jay.
Okay.
Because that's what I call her Jay. So today, let's talk about how this all came about.
You ready to go there?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Because last week we got a lot of interaction on the last podcast. But as a conversation that we had just last night, we started talking about, which was a very fruitful conversation.
It was.
About communication, okay? And communication is one of these things that we know we should be better at, but it's difficult sometimes to navigate through, right? And because people come from their own perspective and both people want to be heard oftentimes individually. So as we talk about communication, that's what we're going to be sharing with today. And we're going to talk about
Christmas communication.
Christmas communication. But we're going to talk about the highs and the lows of marriage, relationships, because it can be kind of tricky.
It can.
It can be kind of tricky. And one of the things before we get started is to dispel this myth that any marriage is perfect. Because I don't know not a one. And I know people that's been married for 2 years. I know people that's been married for 50 years, right? And all in between, it is still a growing process, right? Mm-hmm. So we've been married now for 21 years, got 4 kids. And I would say one of the greatest struggles in our marriage as we've been developing over the years now is learning how to communicate. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't argue. But in those times where something gets dropped into the middle of our marriage, we're not arguing every day, every week and stuff like that. But when those disagreements do pop up.
When they come.
Sometimes it can be challenging.
It can.
So let's talk about that. Why is it challenging?
Well, I thought, we were going to set this up to how it came to be.
Okay, so you want to go all the way back.
Yeah, we got to go back because I thought last night we had breakthrough, don't you think?
Yeah,
I think we did. It was a good breakthrough. But you were playing a podcast for me or something, and you told me to just listen. Don't talk, just listen.
Don't talk, just listen.
And I did. And I have to say that I was really open-minded with what I heard. And I thought it was beneficial. So I was excited that you brought it to my attention, but we didn't realize that it was going to open the lines of communication just from a podcast of another husband and wife couple sharing different things that and even for us, we're like, you know what? We go through that too, or we've been through that too. So it really brought about some positive conversation last night.
It did, because one of the things that I shared with her was this podcast that I listened to. This pastor, I think he's out of Georgia, and they were talking about marriage and ministry, which they're going through a series in their church right now, a month-long series about marriage and ministry. And so he was sharing some things that really resonated within me. And let me just kind of set this up from my vantage point. I told my wife, my lovely wife, that the pressures of being a man are sometimes so weighty. While there's no doubt that my wife, who prays every day, who goes to her prayer closet, who loves God, who honors God, doesn't have her own challenges. No doubt Vinchelle, Markayla, Junior, and Faith don't have their own spiritual challenges, physical challenges, life problems. But the issues and the pressures that come along with being a man is different.
It's different.
It's much different. The weight and the pressure is heavier because we are called to be the priest, provider, and protector of our homes. And oftentimes, men don't have an outlet to express those challenges that we go through. Women have a great outlet. If a woman comes and expresses, some of the challenges that she has in her own life, she's given the freedom and the space to do that. When a man does that, it is almost an assault on his manhood, like he is not man enough to deal with the problems that he is discussing. And so most men, a lot of men, don't have the means by which to express some of the issues and the struggles that they go through on a daily basis. And the point of being heard to the degree where it does not affect the view of their manhood. So because I'm dealing with some issues does not make me less than a man, right? It doesn't make me less than a spiritual man, a godly man, because I'm going through issues of my own self, right? And so it kind of brings up this idea that when we're talking and you ask me how I feel, I want to share with you how I feel without you punishing me for how I feel, because it's how I feel. Not how you want me to feel, but it's how I feel.
Don't that sound like us?
So, and this thing is something that resonated, because there are men that want to open up, but I tell you this, there's not one man that I know that won't smoke with his wife. If he feels like there's going to be confrontation, he will withdraw and not say what he needs to say, because no husband, come on, man, no husband wants that smoke with their wife, because that's not a fight that we can win. Being able to discuss communication, and from the degree to where a person can feel safe in the space of being able to share how they feel without retribution. So it was one of those things, kind of listening to this young man speak. I was like, oh, wow, life is already challenging as it is. Marriage is already tough enough as it is. But when you deal with all of the other stuff that comes along with it, it makes it even a heavier load to carry. So last night we were talking about, what does it mean to be a man, some of the pressures that are on men today, and the space that they need to be able to share without the wife reacting to what the man shares, or the significant other, being able to share freely without retribution, without attitude, without the silent treatment about something that I feel. right? And that's kind of where this thing kind of morphed at to where we are right now, because it is, from my vantage point, a very, very big deal, because there are times in which, life beats us up so much that if you don't have that release valve, if you don't have where you can share, life just kind of builds up so much to eventually it's just going to pop and explode.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that. So I want to be able to share with you how I truly feel without being punished for how I feel, because you feel it's an attack against you.
That or there are some things even with the, expressing that, we as wives, we have a rebuttal in our mind already of what we would like to say. Because we don't understand to the degree of what you have to take on. But as wives, we tend to think, okay, well, if he's thinking that or if he's feeling that way, I have my own feelings too. And I think at times we both parties want to be heard, but really taking that time to listen. Or as I tell the kids, listen and pay attention. It's one thing to listen, but to really pay attention to what's being said. And that happened yesterday, because I think I just asked, hey, babe, how are you doing? And really,
now that's a lead question, because that's a dangerous question, right? And when you say how are you doing, the man thinks, oh Lord, I'm getting set up. So I want to express to you how I'm feeling, but based on some previous conversations,
what you trying to bait me into?
Yeah, what are you trying to bait me into?
It wasn't like
I know that if I tell you how I'm feeling, then it may not be received with the openness of arms, right? And so when you ask me how I'm feeling, most men, when they hear that question, here's what they're gonna say: I'm all right. Most men, they're going to be like, I'm all right. I guarantee you the man that says he's all right is not all right. Okay, the man that says, yeah, I'm all right, I can, I'm dealing with it, I can guarantee you he's dealing with some stuff that he wish he was not dealing with. So when I hear, okay, how are you doing? I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And what was my first response? I'm all right.
I'm all right. But that the default answer, that's what it was. But again, I think it took hearing. Sometimes it takes hearing from someone else, just like with the other podcast, of hearing it a different way or from someone else, to where it really just led up to, okay, let me hear this thing out. Because I know for myself, I want to always be better for you. I believe you want the same thing from me as well, how we can be better for each other. We never get to the point to where we learn so much about each other that we just coast. Because in coasting, you start to let things slip. So it's really a season. Yeah, we 20 plus years in, and really just want to, how do we check on each other? How do we, what are your dreams? What are your goals? What are your desires? What are some things that I need to hear as a wife? And I wanted to hear that yesterday.
And so when we were discussing this, it is important, because it's not a mantra, but one of the things that I try to do is try to take the aha moments away from people. Like, we are in the public eye. People see us, people watch us, people notice us, as husband and wife, as family, they watch our kids. And so there's always eyes on us, right? And so what I try to do is say, hey, listen, God has been good, but life is not perfect. Like, life comes along with challenges, with problems, and all of the things that life brings. But how do you deal with that stuff? So we often talk about communication. And my wife would even say sometimes, as I'm counseling married couples, well, you're counseling them with stuff that we need ourselves, right? And so I've oftentimes thought about that. And it's crazy, because I attribute that to, as I'm doing the counseling or the encouraging, I myself am being counseled to and encouraged. So a lot of that stuff that we be talking about in counseling sessions, a lot of that stuff is just dropped in from the Lord. It's not from a script. And I'll be like, wow, okay, that's some good stuff. How do we do that? But babe, let me tell you, we can talk about communication, but communication is a learned behavior. And it's a scary learned behavior because on the other side of that question may be an answer that you're not ready for. And so, we approach it with some apprehension, right? Even with the ones that we love. Right? Because how are you doing? Well, what if on the other side of that question is an answer that I'm not ready for? How do we process through that?
Or like you would say, when you ask someone how they're doing, sometimes, it's just in passing, how you doing? But what if I really tell you how I'm doing? Will I be at liberty to say how I'm doing? Or do I have to guard that thing so much that if I let my guard down just a little bit, is that going to be used against me? So.
And so when we're talking about us, in those times where the ember gets dropped right there in the marriage, and we talk, there are times in which you feel as though
wait. Now, we did this last week. He dropped a word on me, y'all. That
the ember.
Ember. Get your dictionaries out. Ember.
The spark.
Spark. Okay, we got spark. And you didn't say spark. You just the ember. Okay, got you.
That starts the fire.
Okay.
Right?
Kendall, all right, I got you.
So one of the things that you said to me is that you feel like sometimes it's a personal attack, right? And it's not a personal attack. One of the things that I like to do is I can get over stuff very, very quickly. I can move on, out of sight, out of mind. I'm on to the next thing. For you, it's not so easy.
Not so easy.
So explain why it's not so easy for the woman to move on as quickly as it is for the man.
Because I want to talk about it some more. I want to deal with the issue. We've talked about how we, sometimes we'll have a disagreement or something like that. And again, it's not that it happens often. It's just when it does. And so, I'm not ready to move on. You ready to crack jokes? You ready to bite my arm? You ready to play?
I'm ready to move on.
And I'm not ready yet because I don't think you heard or paid attention to what my side of whatever it may have been was. And so I'm not ready yet.
I'm guilty of that. I'm very guilty of that because there are times in which I have not heard you because what I heard was too complex. It was too much to dissect. Men are very, very linear people, so it's A to B, straight line in between 2 points. Women are A, C, H, M,
so every letter of
P,
the alphabet. I get it.
But it goes all around like that.
I got you,
so sometimes when I hear the response is too complicated for my linear mind to comprehend, and therefore I just move on, right? Because women are much more complex than men.
Why you had to say it all like that?
Because they are. So there are times in which I've missed what I've heard, because it was too complex. So for me, it's okay. This is what I did. Okay, I stepped over the line. Okay, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Let me fall on the sword. Let me apologize. Now that I've done all that, let's move on. But see, what you say is, okay, this affected me in this kind of way.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about how it affected.
And I want to deal with the effects, because I believe once you deal with the effects, then we can truly open up, talk through, and then move on. Not that I've discounted, the making light of it, it's never that, or even just the way that you may think about a certain thing. But again, that goes back to when both parties have been heard. That's that, some people are just great communicators. I'm one that had to really and truly learn how to effectively communicate. Because, growing up, children are taught how to communicate through their parents. You pick up certain things. So I know early on, my thing was, hey, we don't have to communicate. We can go back and forth in a way that won't produce fruit. Then when I found out, well, Sister Holman, Jay, you out of line. I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to go back and forth with my husband in that way because it's not going to produce the fruit that it needs to. So I had to take a step back. In learning how to take a step back, I learned how to be silent. Ladies, I had to learn how to be silent because, for men, they want to be heard. They want their point, want to get their point across. But at the end of the day, what fruit is going to come out of that if we're both going back and forth?
That's a good word. And I think that's a two-way street, right? Mm-hmm. Because when men, for the real man, respect is at a premium. Mm-hmm. Anytime
it's like oxygen to his brain.
It is like oxygen to his brain. Anytime he feels disrespect coming, he will naturally respond in an aggressive way. And it's not so much in the moment. It is just I think it's an instinctive thing. Mm-hmm. When a man feels disrespect coming from whatever angle, then he immediately gets on the defense. Mm-hmm. And when he gets on the defense, everything from that point on is off kilter. Mm-hmm. Because now he's trying to defend himself from getting hurt, mm-hmm. right? And so I think that there's this thing to where wives need to understand that this is a line that may not necessarily be disrespect, but it can be perceived mm-hmm. as disrespect. And we always talk about this: perception equals reality. So in the same way that a wife can say, well, the man can say, I don't know I did anything wrong, because that's what he perceives, but the wife says, no, the way you said that to me, you mm-hmm. said this to me many a times. Mm-hmm. The way you said it. Mm-hmm. So it's not what you say, it's what they hear. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you say, well, the way you said it, okay, now I got to go back and look at how I said it, the tone, the body language. Okay, I can see that. So when we are communicating, it's one of these things to where it's easy to talk about communication, but to learn communication so that the relationship is functional and effective is a whole nother story. Mm-hmm. And I think for me and you, as we have been, very transparent with our own marriage, I think for me, learning how to ever grow, and for a man, it's very hard to swallow pride. It's very, very hard for a man to swallow pride, no matter how long he's been walking with the Lord. Yeah. It is a very, very difficult process. So, but how do we get to a place to where, and I would talk for the man's side and you talk from the woman's side. Okay. For the man, for the average man wants a place of safety. Yeah. Early on in our marriage, 2003, 2005, I used to always tell you, don't send me out of this house uncovered. You remember those conversations? I remember those conversations. Back on Scottsdale. And what I was talking about there was sexually uncovered. Mm-hmm. Don't send your husband out of this house uncovered sexually, because there's too many pitfalls, it's too many traps out there for the man to fall into. And when he's not covered in that area, it makes him susceptible to fall, mm-hmm. right? And so it's not about how I feel I'm doing. If there is a need that is brought up to me, then I need to feel that need.
And then I guess for the woman's side of it, because, to understand, okay, I don't need to leave my husband uncovered, which y'all know homeless. Anyway, to leave my husband uncovered, but early on, life was taking place for us.
Young kids.
So the young kids. So there'll be times that I'm like, I'm tired. And that was one of the things that we even heard yesterday. Not that you want to leave your husband uncovered. You don't want to do that. There are too many other things, women out there, that if they find that one little thing, that's all you need. And prayerfully, with the stronger husband who is committed to the word of God, you know, and there are traps that are set for them as well. But at the end of the day, life begins to happen, and you're thinking, okay, I do want to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of my husband. So one of the things that I think the wife said yesterday, talking about love languages, was, you know, well, you want it 5 times a week, and I only wanted 2. My need is met, but yours is unmet.
It's unmet.
You know.
So you still got 3 more times.
So I got 3.
You got 3 more times.
3? You know, can I knock 2 out in one day when I got the energy? But, you know, so those things were hard early on, because even for us, you guys, when we did, there was a package coming. Hello. So, you know, I had to really learn, okay, I can't leave my husband physically uncovered leaving out this house. You know, you had to go to many houses. There were many, you know, with the occupation that you had, you know, you had to go to housewives.
That's a very good point.
I mean, so I had to make sure that as your wife, I was taking care of that regardless of how I felt.
Now, let me just tell you something. Don't let your man leave the house horny and hungry. Because there's a Jezebel with a sandwich.
Did you say hungry and horny?
Don't let your husband leave the house horny or hungry, because there's a Jezebel with a sandwich. Okay? It is very, very important. Listen, this is one of these things that we had to kind of grow through, because I was thinking about this on the way up here this morning. If I had to go back and start and reset our marriage, I would start with us expressing the expectations of what one needed from the other. Because when we got into the marriage, we just jumped in.
So yeah.
Did we have marriage counseling?
Maybe once or twice.
We had a marriage talk. We didn't have marriage counseling. We had no marriage counseling.
We had a marriage talk.
Yeah.
But I mean, because of where we were beyond the talking and the counseling. You know, we were living outside of the will of God, for one. So those were things that we wanted to make sure that we were getting right. So look, we're about to go on child number 2. Something has to change.
Something has to change.
We didn't have the luxury of going to many different counseling sessions and all of that. You know, we already had Vinchelle. Here we are. Markayla is on the way. We get engaged in December, and then we're married in March. You know, one of the things that and of course during that time we weren't talking about communication. That was the last thing that we were trying to talk about, was how do we effectively communicate. We were communicating in other ways. So we never learned, we got the physical communication down. We didn't have a husband and wife, let's talk through some issues, because here we are about to bring 2 people completely different together.
And we never had like a marriage model to really kind of, set our sights on and say X. Now, we had people in our lives, but at that time we were just, freshly anointed in the Bethel's family deal. So we had, some people around us, but we didn't have those kind of people that we can just sit down and kind of walk us through. So if we had to do it all over again, I would set the law of expectation deep within our marriage. Okay, so here's what I expect of Jay. Jay, what do you expect of Marcus? And what the law of expectation is, and it's something that even if you didn't do it, it's something that you could start to do, is to say, this is what I expect. And then give your partner, your spouse, the ability to respond to that expectation, right? And I say, okay, well, Jay, this is what I expect as a husband, and this is what I'm expecting my wife to do. And then Jay then has the ability to say, I can meet that expectation or I can't. Now, if you say that I can't meet that expectation and we continue on in a relationship, then everything I get post you saying you can't meet it is on me. Because you've already told me I can't meet that. But if you said that you can meet it, then when I bring these kind of conversations that we're not meeting these expectations that we both agreed on, then the conversation should be amicable. So the law of expectation, I think, is a very, very key law to have in your relationship, because communication is one of these deals to where it's easier said than done sometimes.
It's easier said than done. And it apart from, what people have shared, like finances, communication is one of those things that can definitely be damaging to a marriage. And if you don't communicate the way that you need to, just like you said, the expectation, needs not being met. Because when needs are not met, then someone is left disappointed. But just on the side of a wife who is worth her salt, if there is something that her husband is saying, I need this need met, then that husband needs to go in prayer mode, that wife needs to go in action mode. Lord, if I'm not doing it right, then show me. Lord, if I'm not doing it the way that it necessarily needs to look or be done, reveal it to me. I don't have a problem with taking ownership of those things that I feel like I are flawed. I don't want to call it flaws. I think flaws is too strong of a word. Help me out. Flaws is too strong of a word, but those things that I know that I need to grow in, I don't mind figuring out, okay, let me get some alone time with God, or even listening. I might not go lay out all my issues with not that I haven't, but like that, but go lay it out for somebody to say, hey, can you fix this for me? I might not do that. I'm going to seek God first and see, hey, God, what do you say according to your word? And give me the strength and the ability to do that.
So even in that, now we're both Christians, born again, love the Lord. That being the case, there's people out there that are watching that are in relationships to where both of them are not on the spiritual same page. One of the blessings that we have is that spiritually we're on the same page. And I think that's the most important for any type of relationship to really, really do well in, is that spiritually you guys are aligning to the same thing. So in our house, we align to the person and the work of Jesus Christ. All of that stuff is in perfect alignment. And I do say perfect alignment because we are mutually aligned in our faith. We're not unequally yoked. But even in that, the basic things that come along with life apart from Christianity, like when life beats you up, can you come home to a safe place? To a place where life has been beating the hell out of you for 10, 12 hours that day. And when you come home, you don't want the home life to add an additional 6 or 7.
An additional beating.
Beating you silly.
Yeah.
So it's important that husbands and wives understand that our homes are supposed to be the safest place on the planet. Not the church, but your home. Home. And that's not just for husband and wives, but that is for the family. One of the things that I get enjoyment out of is when the kids want to bring, their friends over, or they want to hang out at home, or, things like that. Because I believe that we have an atmosphere where they can just kind of relax, be them. Now, we have standards, just so you know, but there's safety there. There's a peace that is there, just like I shared yesterday. Sometimes I get off and I don't want to go to the grocery store. I don't want to go sit in another line. I just want to make a beeline to my house. Why? Because now if I'm trying to go opposite directions and trying to go here, there, and everywhere, we might need to question that. But I love to make it to the house.
And so there is safety there. And husbands have to feel like, after I've come home from a hard day's work, let me just relax. Let me just take care of my fish, build a Lego set, go to my garage, go to my man cave, let me go out and just sit and just have that time. Now, we do as wives, we want our attention too, but there's safety when your husband is at home as well.
Now, and I pray that you guys get that, ladies. I pray that you guys get that, because I think that is an absolute, not absolute, I don't want to overstate it, but a place for a man to organize his thoughts.
Yeah.
Where he's not dealing with anything. He doesn't he's in his garage or he's upstairs in his man cave. That's a place of safety. It's a place where that's a place where he can organize himself to re-engage. Because remember now, he's coming from a world that has just beat him up spiritually, emotionally, physically. And before he re-engages, he needs to get his thought life together. He needs to organize himself before he gets back in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very important place. Now, for my wife, that place is her prayer closet. She goes in there frequently, and that's where she gets her solace time at. For me, I go to my garage or I go outside on our gazebo. And I'm just out there just getting my thoughts together, right? It's just me by myself, just trying to process the day so that I don't bring the day back into the house. Yeah. Right, and that's one thing.
That's where we can stay right there for a minute, because at times I believe couples or married couples can bring their day home with them, and you take that out on people who never deserved it,
Absolutely.
Who never asked for that, and so that's important. I mean, of just being able to leave those things where they are. If it's ministry, if it's work, and not saying that they don't ever come home with you. We can't set that up like that, but it shouldn't outweigh the times that you should be able to come home and just relax.
Exactly.
They can't be like, oh Lord, they coming home, what they gonna dump on us today? No, it shouldn't be like that.
But even also in that, my love, is we can't be pouring everything out to them, skinning and grinning in front of people on our jobs, and then when we get home, we're Grinches at the house, right? Yeah. So it's important that, as you are coming home from whatever particular field that you may be in, that you don't bring the drama of that stuff into your most sacred and safe place, which is your house. And it's got to be a very, very intentional act. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's unwinding on the way home. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's turning the music off and gathering your thoughts, because as soon as you walk in the door, you got kids, you got dogs, you got cats, you got wife, you got husband that are going to be on you. So maybe it's about an intentional act about decompressing after I leave this war zone, so that I don't bring the casualties of that war zone into my house.
Yeah. And I can hear you wives, or, significant others, of what you may be thinking. What if I just need to talk?
Talking is important. I think what women need to understand is that most men, don't talk as much as women. You guys, and I share this with my wife all the time. God has blessed her in ways that He has not blessed me. God has blessed her in a way that she reasons from both sides of her brain. Men do not reason from both sides of their brains. We don't. Now, you have a couple of them floating around out there, but most men are linear thinkers. Mm-hmm. Most men, when you give them a problem, ladies,
fix it, Jesus,
they instantly go into fix it mode. I found that they don't want us to fix it, but the talking about the problem is the solution to the problem, to which I don't understand. Okay, you give me a problem. Mm-hmm. Here's the solution. Problem solved. It's a 5-minute conversation. Well, what is a 5-minute conversation to me
might be a 30-minute conversation for me. And that's okay. I know that one of the takeaways that we even got last night was that both parties want to be heard. And it's not that it's wrong what either person is saying. You know, it may just be a different way of thinking it or a different way of processing it, not that it's necessarily wrong.
Man, can you hear that? Just because you don't agree does not mean I'm wrong.
Come on. All right.
Does that make sense to you?
Give me praise break music.
Just because you don't agree with it does not mean that I'm wrong, because it is a personal perspective. And the difficulty sometimes with two people, each person wants to be individually heard. But I want to be heard more than I want you to listen. And so I'm listening, but I'm only listening to respond so that you can more intunely hear me. And I think when we both go to our separate corners, both acknowledge that we want to be heard, bring the space down, open our ears, take the pride out of our ears, and then each one hear what the other one is truly saying without punishing them for hearing something that they didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that truly is the challenge. That is the challenge. How do you do that? And like I said, for us, it was an aha moment just for us. It was nothing that was planned. It just naturally happened. And that was the blessedness of what we got out of last night. That even if I hear something that I might not necessarily agree with, I still have to be attentive to it. I don't always have to have my rebuttal. Even though rebuttals are floating through my mind, I don't always have to have a rebuttal to what you may be sharing.
And I think and I'm speaking only on behalf of the men. I told my wife a few months ago, maybe in the summertime, that a woman, a dog, and a baby are the only three things in life that are loved unconditionally. A woman, a dog, and a baby are the only things in life that are loved unconditionally. A man is loved by what he does and what he provides. She greatly pushed back on that when I told her that a few months ago.
I was just offended. She was offended. I was offended.
But I said a man is loved by what his hands build. And I say, here's further evidence of that, because you always hear about the sorry man. Well, why is he sorry? He's still a man. He's sorry from the idea and perspective of others because he hasn't done anything in life. He's got babies that he's not taking care of. He's not going to work, X, Y, and Z. And because of what he does, there's a label or a stigma attached to him. Whereas anybody else, the woman, the dog, the baby, is loved unconditionally. But the man is not built to be loved like that. The man is built to be loved by what his hands provide. That is a heavy weight. It is a very, very, very heavy weight, because the man always has to be in building mode. Whereas if he's not building something, then he's not acknowledged as the man that he thinks he should be acknowledged at. And so when you're looking at how a man incorporates into the family aspect and as a husband, it is important that wives understand, now this is the spiritual part of it, understand the significance of this spiritual warfare that the man is engaged in. Yeah. It is very, very important because Mark 3:27, that no one can come into a man's house. It's not anthropos. It's, quick Bible lesson. Man is not anthropos, meaning mankind.
You about to exegete the text.
Exegete. It's anus, which means masculine. No one can come into a man's house and plunder his goods until he first binds the strong man. Then once the strong man is bound, he can go in and plunder his goods. So the strategy is to plunder the man, to bind the man, so that everything that the man is protecting is now easy prey for the enemy. And you see this going on in the world right now, where men are being emasculated. These feminized men. You see this going on in the world right now, so that men are taken out of the way, so that the wife, the children, the dog, the cat, and everybody else is free reign for the enemy. And it is important that wives understand the spiritual significance of when their man leaves the house, right? And not only to be covering him, but to understand that that is a heavy, heavy load that this man is carrying every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. And so as a man, I wanted to explore that with my wife, but there are times in which you got to pump the brakes, because you got to be considerate of how it may sound on the other side. And sometimes men, we're just not that considerate to doing that. But to the man that's out there that says, I don't want that smoke, so I'm just gonna suppress it. I got issues that I'm dealing with. I'm not gonna let them be known. Let me just encourage you. It's just a ticking time bomb. It is a ticking time bomb. And I pray that those who are watching would create a space of safety in their house. That I gotta pay attention to when my wife wants to talk, even though I don't have that many words. I gotta pay attention when my wife wants to cuddle and sit down and watch love movies and romantical movies.
I do. I like it.
You know,
but I'll sit down and I'll watch an action-packed movie with you, or a football game or two.
Yeah.
I don't know nothing that's going on, but I act like I do. I'll do that. But that's how we, again, that's sharpening each other, because I'm making sure that I'm, enjoying those things that you like, and you're enjoying those things that I like. I haven't quite gotten down to the, the really just going shopping and being able, I ain't got that yet, but almost. Right?
No, I ain't doing shopping. Yeah, I'm not.
But to really be involved with each other in that way, that's another way of being able to have something to communicate about. We don't want a boring marriage. We want to have fun in our marriage. We want to be able to effectively communicate, because we're teaching our children how to effectively communicate with others as well. And so if they see us out of order with how we're doing that, and that's for other families too, then guess what? All they're going to do is take that to wherever they go.
And babe, to where we are right now, let me just speak for me, because we've had this conversation, so I think it's appropriate that we have it now. I have, there was some deep traumatic childhood pain and trauma. And unfortunately, because I didn't know how to walk through it properly, and I didn't have people around me that could coach me through the pain went from year to year, from adolescence into young adulthood. And I brought a lot of stuff, a lot of baggage, right? Because of stuff that happened to me early in my life, that I just didn't know how to deal with. But I would see these things pop up every now and then. And I would be able to clearly identify where those things came from, right? But being in a space to where you can share some hurt, some pain, some trauma, some stuff that happened to you in a safe space will help the other understand why this person does this. Well, this is not just an arbitrary thing. This thing is springing from somewhere, right? And creating that safety space to allowing that person to kind of walk through it, maybe even for the first time in their life, will give you insight and revelation to why a person acts the way that they do. I've said about you that it was very, very important for me to provide stability, because my wife moved a lot in her younger years. It kind of became a running joke that, she knew everybody that she went to school with, but, my wife moved several times, in her years. So once I understood that, I had to provide stability. So we couldn't be getting up and moving once every 2 years, every year, every 3 years. We had to be very, very stable, because that was something that was going to help you heal from some of the things that happened in your past. Does that make sense?
That makes, yeah.
And so I think when we create these areas of space where people can, hey, let me tell you about this. And then you say, well, wow, I didn't know that. I had no idea. Well, that explains this. So now that I know that, I'm able to adjust when that happens again, right? Because that's a space to where I didn't know about. And so it's important that in communication, as we talk about it, 21 years in, 4 kids in, pastor, first lady, children's ministry director, executive pastor, missions pastor, and all that other lofty stuff that God has been terribly faithful with us.
Yes, definitely.
Right? But it's important that we try to present very real, practical solutions.
Yes.
Because we just didn't have it. We just didn't have it.
And that's the passion in it all. There are things that I know that we try to help people kind of navigate through. One of the things that you teach, you don't have to do drugs and to know that it's bad for you. You can look at the effects from what happened to someone else to know that it's bad for you. And so even in marriages, while all marriages come with their own set of problems, difficulties, challenges, and the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is, we want to help people through that. We want to see marriage work because we're 2 people that said we would never get married. I mean, so to see where we are now, we're passionate and hopeful that we can model a marriage before people that is beneficial to them and their family.
Absolutely. And I think for those who are watching, I think you just need to dispel the myth that both of you guys love Jesus and both of you guys are committed to Christ. But that does not mean that you're not going to face challenges within your marriage and in your family. But I think it's important to really understand how to deal with those issues in a very, very beneficial way. We're not out here trying to live a perfect life. We're out here trying to live a faithful life.
Yeah.
Because God's not going to say, well done, thou good and perfect servant. He's going to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So the object is to be faithful. And what we do is I've dropped my anchor in my house, right? So the commitment level has been set, and this is important. I dropped my anchor so that the commitment level is set. So I'm committed to this thing, like till death do us part. Till death do us part. Listen, you can be mad, but you're going to be mad in this house. Okay, you ain't going to your mama house. You ain't leaving nowhere. The anchor has been set. The commitment level has been set, right? And once the commitment level has been set, then everything else from there is just a process, right? Because we ain't going back and forth. This ain't no, this, that, or another. We ain't throwing no pots, no pans. We ain't cussing nobody out. The commitment level has been set. But I think it's important, Bae, as we, travail through life, especially as spiritual couples, that we understand that the war that we are fighting right now has a lot more casualties than what meets the human eye.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So for us, it's very important that to have a safe space and to be able to communicate in a way where the other hears the other, right? And hears it not from a place of the pride being hurt, because it can, pride can definitely be hurt, but being able to hear from the place of, I'm concerned about that.
I'm concerned.
Okay, yeah. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about why you feel like that. Okay, I may not like it, but why do you feel like that, right? And once we get to that place to where we can appreciate that from the other through communication, effective communication, then I believe not only are you going to see the problems eradicate, because that's never going to happen, but you'll be able to navigate life a whole lot easier, right? Does that make sense? And so all of this to say, life is a constant learning process.
It is.
And I don't ever want anybody out there to go into something like marriage, even on a Christian level, thinking that it's going to be a yellow brick road, because it's not.
Now you can create some roads.
You can
create some roads, but yeah, it's. But one of the things that you know, babe, that I've even seen is even what we model. Like we're talking about communication right now. Last week was, you know, the you know, turning our mess into a message. You know, the frolicking and all of that. But to be at a point right now where we're modeling a happy, healthy marriage, because, you know, people always have what a marriage is not. Let's talk about what a marriage is. And so a marriage is good. A marriage helps the other. When you're able to return me back better than you received me, that's beneficial to a marriage. When I've grown as a wife, when I've grown as a mother, or you've grown as a husband, or you've grown as a father, those are good things in a marriage. Now, we had to get through some challenges to get to good, but I mean, marriages are good because, again, we're two people that came from never wanting to get married. So I think we have to understand that as well.
So I absolutely agree.
You just got real close.
I absolutely agree. And marriage is good. I think the issue with marriage is people. Two broken people who don't know how to heal, who go into a relationship where they're trying to be perfect for everybody else. So I think that when you create this safe home, safe marriage, safe family, where brokenness can be healed from within because the other is genuinely concerned about how the other is doing, right? And so I want to encourage those who are watching right now, listen, marriage is a good thing. Marriage is a good thing, but it takes work.
It does.
And
it's good work.
It's good work, but it takes compromise.
It does.
And beating down of pride.
Yes.
And real quick before we finish this out, the need to want to be right. Right? Okay. The need or the desire, not necessarily the need, maybe the want to be right. Okay.
Or, you know, when them I told you so's be going on in the back of your mind. Like I told you so.
I told you so. Those are not healthy. The I told you so's are not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not a good look. From the man or for the woman's side, the husband or the wife's side, those are not good looks. If you wanted to say something to encapsulate to the women, to the wives, to the girlfriends who are looking to be married, what would that one thing be, and how to communicate with your significant other?
Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question. You definitely have to be willing to take a step back as a wife and hear your husband, and especially the way that, you know, we have those words that are out there like respect. Respect is a good thing. Submission is a good thing, and it'll get you everything if done right. Hallelujah. So I want to make sure that they understand that going into something like that, and if you can do the counseling prior to getting married, that is always helpful. If you don't have that, like we didn't necessarily have that, you have to be willing to go through those uncharted territories with the one that you said I do to. And it's going to be uncomfortable at times, but it's necessary. And so for that woman, for that wife, for that future wife, be willing, be open. The things that we were taught to make sure that we were independent and making sure that we have ourselves together and don't depend on anybody else. Those are things that were taught from a guarded place. And so we have to make sure that as God has designed our husband to be the one that loves us, the one that washes us with the word, we have to be willing to let him do that. And then in return, be in our place of being respectful and submissive. And those are not bad words. Those are good words.
Those are very, very good words. Very, very good words.
Say it with me, submit. I mean, it's powerful.
Let me tell you. I would say to the husband, to the fiance, whoever that may be, who may be watching, Ephesians 5 tells the wife to respect her husband. Ephesians 5:25 tells the husband to love his wife. So there are two commands. The only thing that the wife is given in Ephesians 5 is respect. That's the only thing that Paul admonishes the wife to do is to respect. But Paul admonishes the husband to love, to honor, to wash, and to present. So the husband has been given a weightier role.
It's not a bad job description.
No, it's not a bad job description. Mm-hmm. But what will help him love, honor, wash, and present is when the wife respects. When the wife respects, all of the things that the husband do automatically come. Mm-hmm. So I would tell the husband that there are times in which we, because of the mere makeup of our brains and how we think, we have to take a step back to hear something otherwise that we don't necessarily want to hear. Men are not very heavy talkers. Okay, but there are times, men, in which talking is her love language. It's how she works things out is by talking. Mm-hmm. And so we got to sit down, and as much as we want to, as much as we don't want to, sit down and listen in those times. So I would share that, this whole process of becoming into the image of Christ on a daily basis is a very, very exciting journey.
It is.
But I want to say to all of those, and to you, well, I already said it to you, marriage is a good thing, but you have to put in the work. And the work sometimes is very arduous. It's very...
Wait a minute. Arduous. Arduous.
It's very laborious.
Laborious. You bringing them all out today. Get them dictionaries.
It is something that is worth investing time, energy, and effort into. Communication is absolutely important, not just in marriage, but in life.
You're exactly right.
You got to know how to communicate. And it's not what you say, it's what people hear. Mm-hmm. I've said things with the greatest of intentions, but how I said it messed up what they heard. And I need you to hear that as we bring this to... I've said things with the greatest of intentions, but how they heard what I said, the tone in my voice, the cadence, the body language, messed up what in my mind was not bad. Mm-hmm. But they heard it another way. So it's not what you say, it's what people hear. And being aware of those things help us to communicate effectively.
Yes.
So on this wonderful day where I have my wife of 21 years and the mother of 4 of my children, I want to thank you in Jesus' name for being a Proverbs 31 woman, Proverbs 18 and 22 woman, and Ephesians 5 and 22 woman. I want to thank you for that. Publicly acknowledge just how much I love you and adore you, and how committed I am to Team Holman, to the depths of my very being. And that as long as I got breath in my lungs, as long as I'm able to move and function, I will protect this family with my last dying breath. And so you are in safe hands with Marcus D. Holman. Now, you're in better hands with Jesus. But since I'm in the hands of Jesus, you are in very, very, very capable hands. And just know that sometimes I don't get it right. Sometimes I don't say it right. Sometimes I don't do it right. But I pray that you reason from the place of this man loves me. This man loves our family and is committed to us both. And I pray that that's the buffer and the grace in those times in which I don't say it right.
It definitely is, and I know that I have a strong, show enough man that God has given me, and I appreciate all that you do, how you go out every day, having to stand your ground, whether that's in ministry, whether that's in other opportunities that present itself. Whatever God has for you, this family stands behind you 100%, because we know that the enemy is out there. He's trying to attack the man. And I believe that if the man continues to get in his rightful place, stay in his rightful place, that we as a family will continue to follow. And so I thank God that you in your place. You seek God, you stand behind God, you stand on the word of God, and it makes it easy to submit to that, to love that, to respect that, and to honor that. And so I appreciate all that you do, how you teach, how you lead, but more importantly, how you come home to that safe place every single day.
That's a good word, and I do come home every single day.
Hallelujah.
I don't detour, don't deviate. A to B, B to A. So everybody, on behalf of Team Holman, my lovely wife, we want to thank you for a tremendous year of this podcast. Yes. We've been getting some absolutely phenomenal feedback from you guys. Thank you. For 8,000 subscribers. Remember, man, we're trying to bump over that 10,000. We need your help in doing that. We need you to go to our YouTube page, Studio B, the podcast, like, follow, and subscribe. And right to the right of that subscribe button is a little bell. Make sure that you click it so that you'll be notified every time that we go live. We got some stuff coming up next year. We got the Zoom calls. I'm going to be having guests from all different continents on this planet that are going to be chiming in to Studio B. But on behalf of Steve Miller, on behalf of Dominique Kennard-Bean, Patrick Garrett, man, we want to thank you so very much for joining us here on the set of Studio B. Your followership and viewership is greatly appreciated, and we love you always. So until the new year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Love each other, love God, watch God take care of all of the issues in your life when you simply trust Him. Because if God be for you, it's more than the entire world against you. We'll see you next time.